For some reason, maybe too many kids' movies, you don't expect somebody named Matilda to be an organized crime boss, but Matilda Mary Devine, known as Tilly, was. She was originally from London, but married a soldier during World War I and moved to Australia with him as a war bride after the war ended. She was only 16 when she married, but already had a history of sex work, as many English women did during the war, and that work continued after she married and moved to Australia. There were so many war brides headed to Australia after the war that they actually had bride ships. There's a bit of trivia for you. So Tilly arrives and she and husband Jim take up drug dealing, bootlegging, and brothel management, and other general crime gang duties. Tilly became known as the Queen of Woolloomooloo and had a series of brothels in Sydney. It didn't take her a long time to become very well known to police. She had a very long criminal record by 1925. By the end of her crime enterprise, she had 204 convictions on that record just in Australia. Some convictions appeared as indecent language, which is now better known as soliciting, and as offensive behavior, which was prostitution. There were also convictions for assault and consorting with known criminals, and one for a particularly nasty wounding that sent her off to a women's prison for 2 years. For whatever reason, men were prohibited from running brothels, but women could. And Tilly did, with the support of her gang. She regularly bribed police so the brothels wouldn't be raided too often. The bribes barely cut into the profits, as Tilly and Jim amassed a lot of wealth, property, luxury cars, jewelry, first-class trips. They were just living the high life. She was apparently known to be quite benevolent to workers that she thought were honest and loyal. She provided protection, food, lodgings, and even medical care for her sex workers. But if she thought that they weren't turning over all their earnings, there were savage beatings and often scars that they would take with them. Her husband was no prize. He served as her pimp, her bodyguard, her driver, and her getaway man, but he was also very, very violent. He killed other criminals, claimed self-defense, got away with several murders. He tried to kill Tilly once, but she wouldn't testify about fleeing down the street while Jim shot at her. She was violent herself, shooting her second husband in the leg during an argument before they were married. She got into a bit of a gang war with another girl gang leader, Kate Lee. At the time, there were strict laws against carrying or using firearms and very high sentences if criminals used them in any way. So gangs were using knives and razors and became known as razor gangs. Tilly was the leader of one, Kate was the leader of a rival one. The two would literally get into it in the streets, brawls that saw untold numbers of their minions slashed, stabbed, and sometimes shot. Police commissioner insisted all that stop and forced the two women into a kind of truce. The commissioner said that if they knocked off the stabby and fisticuffs, then they could go on about their highly illegal businesses without interference from the police. The conflict became popularly known as the Razor Wars. Well, with her many, many court appearances, she became sort of a celebrity in Australia. She would show up in court just dripping with diamonds and fur and putting on a show, the like she would see in an actor's betrayal of a flamboyant sex worker. She was quite the performer, and her audience, the public, were strangely into watching her. During World War II, business was so good that she began donating money to the families of Australian soldiers, veterans' welfare associations, and children's hospitals. She was hounded by the tax authorities and eventually sold off her last brothel in 1968 after it was firebombed by brand new gangs wanting to take over sex work in the area, and Tilly died 2 years later. There were few public eulogies for her, it is said, but there's one from a police commissioner who said, quote, "She was a villain, but who am I to judge her?" End quote. Thank you for listening. If you're enjoying these videos and you want to see more, please click the subscribe button and hit those notifications so that you don't miss any uploads. We appreciate you. Thanks.